Hey everybody, I'm Jesse Weber and welcome back to the Law and Crime Network, where we cover some of the most interesting live trials and legal stories in the news today. And we are continuing our coverage of two important trials in the news. And that is first, the Donald Smith case. We've been continuing our coverage of this one that has been in the news constantly. This is the case where Donald Smith, he is charged with the abduction, sexual battery, that's rape, ladies and gentlemen, and first-degree murder of 8-year-old Cherish Periwinkle. I know you've heard that name. It's been in the news constantly. The trial began yesterday. We saw the opening arguments by both the state and the defense, and while the state delivered an emotional and powerful opening argument, the defense, not so much. We're going to talk about that moving forward, but what we really want to highlight from yesterday is the fact that Rain Periwinkle, who's Cherish's mother, was the first witness to testify. And she explained how Donald Smith abducted her 8-year-old daughter and eventually murdered her. Tortured and murdered her. We're going to play that for you a little bit later and talk about that. Today, we expect the medical examiner to testify, and I warn our viewers right now that some of it will get very graphic. You heard a little bit of the details of this, the final moments of what this young girl went through yesterday in the prosecution's opening arguments. You also heard the testimony of one of the officers who had a K-9 unit that discovered the body. But today, as the ME testifies, you know it's going to be a bit graphic, so we warn our viewers at the beginning of the program that this might be a lot to take in because this poor young girl really did suffer before she died. So we'll talk about that in a minute. I do want to let our viewers know that we're also covering another trial, the Bob Ward case. You can go to lawandcrime.com for live coverage of that. Our main focus today will be the Donald Smith case, but if you do want to follow the Bob Ward case, go to lawandcrime.com. Now, Bob Ward, this is out of Florida. He's charged with second-degree murder in the shooting death of his wife, Diane. But the question becomes, was this murder? Was this an intentional killing? Or was this a tragic accident? What was going on? Was there a struggle over the gun? What was really happening in their bedroom, in their house in Florida? That becomes the question between the prosecution and the defense trying to battle it out. And there's been some evidentiary issues back and forth about certain witnesses, what they can testify to and what they've testified to previously. And I say previously because this is the second time that Bob Ward is on trial. That's right. He had already been convicted previously for second-degree murder of his wife back in 2011, but an appeals court reversed it, said that there were some mistakes made by his attorneys. He was granted a new trial, and that's what's happening right now. Again, go to lawandcrime.com to follow that case. But our main focus right now is the Donald Smith case, and I want to talk a little bit about it. And joining me in studio is a good friend of the network, criminal defense attorney Yosha Gunasekera. Yosha, great to see you.
Good to be here.
Now, as a defense attorney, I have to ask you about the Donald Smith defense here. Very strange defense, very strange opening arguments. They didn't say that he wasn't the one who did it. They just said, listen to all the facts, listen to all the statement, don't make a judgment based on emotion. And then they started to blame the mother, Rain Periwinkle. What'd you make of that?
So the beginning started to sound like what we would call a non-opening opening, which is basically exactly what they did. In a lot of cases, when you have nothing to say at the beginning, it's better to save it all for the closing. But it's generally not a good idea to attack the mother of a child who has died. So that was not a good idea here. What they're doing is they're grasping at straws. They're trying to get whatever they can, but you have to be so delicate because the jury here is really going to sympathize with the mother. Anyone is going to sympathize with the mother. So they're really treading on dangerous territory.
So what happened yesterday, Yosha, I agree with you, right before the defense was going to cross-examine her, Donald Smith said to his attorneys, I don't want to cross-examine. What, did he feel guilty, or did he felt that would not look good for him in the eyes of the jury?
I think he felt it wouldn't look good for him, but really that's a decision that his attorney should make. It's easy to forget that the strategic decisions are made by the attorneys, and it would have been strategic here to be able to question her, and not question her in a mean or accusatory way, but just at least to get more things out that could be positive for Donald Smith.
Yeah, but what are they going to go with now? I mean, and I was confused why in the opening statement they said, what good would it be blaming the mother? Yeah, you put your child in a dangerous situation, but you put it in a dangerous situation with our client. How does that get him off? I'm confused what they're going to do moving forward.
I think it was likely to create some sort of reasonable doubt. Now, remember
that he didn't do it?
That he didn't do it.
Again, he wasn't entirely responsible?
I think anytime you have a case where it really seems like a slam dunk for the prosecution, you're creating smoke and mirrors. Is there someone else who could have done it? Is there been a pattern where she's left her child with strangers? Could there have been another stranger? Because in this case, you don't see Donald Smith commit the crime. It's a circumstantial case, and yes, it's an extremely strong circumstantial case, but you still have that, the defense has that to hang their hat on. So I think creating a confusing atmosphere is helpful, and at the very least, they should have questioned her. They should have asked something about the time delays, about how long she was in the store, because she went missing for so many hours, and that adds to the confusion.
So you talk about so many hours. I'm confused because why did it take the police so long to notify the media about this missing girl and also identify it as an abduction? For the longest time, for the first few hours, it was a missing persons case.
And it should not have been, because you have the mother here saying, my daughter was taken. My daughter was with a stranger and my daughter was taken. And it comes down to people just not taking her seriously. And that 911 call is just chilling, where she's sobbing and she's feeling regretful. And I think anyone listening to it is literally having goosebumps on their arms. Yet you have police who are not taking her seriously. And my understanding is people were disciplined as a result.
Yeah, but it sounds like there was more. I think it took 40 minutes for somebody in the Walmart to give her a cell phone to call 911. It sounds like there was ample opportunity to save this young girl's life, and they didn't.
Yes, and I think that there's blame to fall on many people in this situation, just not taking the situation seriously and just assuming that she wandered away in the store, when really it depends on these cases. Fast action is critical, and that just wasn't taken. What
did you think of her testimony, Rain's testimony?
That it was emotional, and I think that that's what the prosecution is making this trial about. It's very sad, and I think they're trying to appeal to the heartstrings of the juries to try to get justice done here.
Strange story, because you have a woman who is desperate, who needed some money, wanted to buy some clothes for her children, and at the end of the day, she befriended somebody, and it turned out to be the worst decision she'll ever make in her life, and it's really, really heartbreaking. Yosha, stand by. We just want to recap what we're covering here. We are covering the Donald Smith case, the Cherish Periwinkle case. As soon as we have a live feed in the courtroom, we'll make sure to go to it. And again, go to lawandcrime.com to follow the Bob Ward case as well. We're not going to want to miss anything there. And when we come back from this break, we'll talk more about both cases. Two witnesses that were just brought to the stand to talk about that stroller that was found. Now you're understanding some of the evidence, how it was collected by the police, and what we believe. Here with Yosha Gunasekera. Yosha, you see the witness that's about to come onto the stand. This is going to be, I think this might be the medical examiner, and this is going to get pretty intense. It's going to be very intense. They're going to go through what was seen when her body was found. They're going to talk about how she was brutalized and how she was suffered. So this is going to be very emotional testimony. Let's see if we, as soon as we have a live feedback in the courtroom, we're going to make sure to go to it. But it's really interesting to hear. Jerome Bruton, the first witness who just came on the stand, not even connected to Donald Smith, not connected to Cherish Periwinkle, and he got emotional on the stand. This case affects everybody. It does. And what was really interesting is that everybody knew about this case. That blue stroller, immediately they called the police because they knew something was wrong. And that's what I think is really unique about this community. Everybody, in a short span of time when it was first reported, was on the lookout for this young girl. Yeah, it's really a disturbing case. I just want to let our viewers know they're working on a visual issue in the courtroom. As soon as we have it, we'll make sure to go back into it. But the graphic nature of this, the details of what this young girl went through is just horrific. I think we have a live feed back in the courtroom, so let's go to it. James. The medical examiner needed to take a break. She is crying on the stand. I wonder if we could show a side-by-side, if we still have a feed in the courtroom. Otherwise, it is really horrific. It is horrific. Yosha, I am at a loss for words for what I'm listening to. It is actually difficult to even listen to it. And we're told that the jurors, multiple women on the jury, are crying. Many of the jurors are not even watching the photos. They're not even looking at them. Some were even so disturbed by the details of this before she even went into the analysis of Cherish. Horrific. It's extremely
disturbing, and this is a case like no other. You just so rarely see cases like this that ultimately go to trial, and they're extremely
Why
graphic.
is this a trial? Why is this a trial? Why didn't he just take a deal, say, I don't make a deal, I don't want the death penalty, and plead guilty to everything? Why is this a trial?
The prosecutor didn't want to give him a deal. This is, they have a very strong case, even though it's a circumstantial case. They have a lot of evidence against him, and in Florida, they just changed the death penalty statute, so now the jurors have to unanimously vote for the death penalty, but I would imagine that the prosecutor in this case wanted the death penalty.
Right, exactly, and said, you know what, you're not getting it, you're not getting off, you're not spending the rest of your life in jail, you have to live with the possibility of going to the dying. And I think that the interesting part here, as you said, is the law in Florida changed. And we've seen cases before where I would have said a jury's definitely going to sentence a person to death. Now, he isn't at that point yet. This is still the guilt or innocence phase. Is there any way his defense are trying to win that argument?
They can present some sort of mitigating evidence. They most likely will. They'll try to maybe delve into his past, into maybe abuse that he's faced, try to make him as sympathetic as possible. But right now, this testimony is just so horrifying. I mean, as a defense attorney, I see disturbing things, but this is just
the medical examiner had to ask for a break. She was crying too much. Have you seen that?
No.
No.
That's her job. I mean, she looks at dead bodies, unfortunately, as her job. And I think just the fact that Cherish is a child is just really disturbing to all of us.
We're talking about an 8-year-old girl here who was kidnapped, brutally sexually assaulted, as you just heard. I don't even want to share the details with you. It is so disturbing. You can hear it yourself. And then she was ultimately strangled to death in such a horrific manner. And we seem to understand that she was strangled with some sort of fabric. And the way the final moments of her life are truly chilling. We're going to be back after this commercial break with more live coverage. Welcome back to Law and Crime, everybody. We are covering the Donald Smith case here, and it should be noted that before we went to the break, the medical examiner who was on the stand explaining the gruesome details of Cherish Periwinkle's both her rape and her killing, she had to ask for a break. She was crying on the stand. There are jurors who are crying. Many jurors can't even look at the photos of this young 8-year-old girl who was brutalized. It should be noted that the defense moved for a mistrial, and it was ultimately denied. I have with us criminal defense attorney Yosha Gunasekera. Mistrial denied by the judge. What do you think's happening here?
There could have been a mistrial for a variety of reasons. They could have asked for a mistrial just given the medical examiner's behavior. Obviously, it's very upsetting, but the defense might argue that, this is her job, and being emotional really unduly bias the jurors. There could have been a mistrial because some of the jurors were not looking at some of the evidence, although that would probably be, if anything, beneficial for the defense. So I would say it's most likely based on the fact that the medical examiner was emotional.
Look, nobody's feeling sympathy for Donald Smith. Again, I should say that he is alleged to have done this. It still has to be found guilty in a court of law, but it should be noted, no one's feeling sympathy at all for him. But the idea that if people are prejudiced by, if their opinion, the juror's opinion, is prejudiced by the photos, by the medical examiner crying, that seems like grounds for mistrial. Why would the judge deny it, you think?
So a mistrial is a big ask. It essentially means that they have to restart the trial again. They have to re-find jurors. So they're only going to move forward with the mistrial if the judge really thinks that it's reversible error. In other words, they think that on appeal, Mr. Smith would win. And so she's not thinking that this is at that level. It has to be a very high bar. There's a lot of ways to resolve the medical examiner's, what she did by, giving an instruction to the jury to ignore her emotion.
It's interesting because they had such a difficult time trying to find a dury. How many times during the jury selection process did jurors say, I want him killed? He's guilty. I look at him. He's guilty. People said I had no problem sending him to the death, issuing the death penalty here. And I think it's going to be really hard. It took them so much time to try to find a jury. I don't think they want to go through that process again.
I think that there's one of many reasons, and even to put Cherish's mother again through this is something to consider. It's been a very emotional trial, and again, mistrials are not taken lightly. Judges take them very seriously. There's already been a lot of work and effort put into this trial, so she just deemed what happened that didn't rise to the level that you normally see a mistrial.
Everybody, you are watching the Donald Smith case. He is charged with kidnapping, sexual battery, that means rape, and first-degree murder of 8-year-old Cherish Periwinkle. And it is a horrific case. You were listening to the medical examiner. The trial began yesterday. As Yosha said, Rain Periwinkle, Cherish's mother, took the stand and explained how this whole series of events unfolded, where she was shopping at the dollar store with her 3 children, and at the kindness of his heart, Donald Smith comes along, watches them, and then offers to buy them some things at Walmart, says that I see that you need some money, I see that you need some, you're getting some things for your daughters, I have a $150 gift card, my wife will bring it, and they go to the Walmart together, she trusts him. Turns out this all ends with him abducting Cherish Periwinkle. You know, Yosha, you listen to the story recounted by Rain Periwinkle, and you can just feel the guilt that she wanted to believe that this man was good, was going to help her buy things for her daughters, even buy some food. Though at the end of the day, he said, I'm going to go with Cherish to buy some hamburgers at the McDonald's in the Walmart. The McDonald's and the Walmart had closed, and he had no wife. He had no wife. There was nobody coming with the gift card. The amount of guilt that she feels, you can't even imagine.
Of course. I mean, she's lost a child and she feels responsible. But what happened was Donald Smith took advantage of someone who was in a desperate situation. And I think it's easy for a lot of people to cast blame on Cherish's mother, but really she was in a desperate situation. She thought that she had, found the kindness of a stranger who really took advantage of her, because at the end of the day, we like to believe that most people are good, that most people are not going to take our children and do these horrible things. And unfortunately, that just wasn't the case here. It's,
I listened to this, and you were showing you pictures of this young girl. She was a beautiful young girl, and the medical examiner is describing the details of what she went through, and it's hard to even fathom. What I want to play for you is, again, the court is in break right now for the medical examiner to compose herself, trying to understand how to make this trial go forward. The jurors are obviously visibly shaken. We're going to update you about the latest from that case, but I want to play for you right now some testimony from Rain Periwinkle from yesterday, and this is exactly the moment when she realized something was wrong, that her daughter was missing. And remember, it took 40 minutes for her to get a cell phone from one of the Walmart employees to call 911. Let's play you this clip right now.
You thought they were just going to get cheeseburgers?
Yes.
After they walk off, what do?
I went to the shoe section because my 5-year-old Destiny wanted a pair of shoes, a bigger size.
Did you continue to shop for the girls and look at clothes and things of that nature?
I was just looking at the shoes, and then I started to walk to the front of the store.
Had you heard an announcement about the store would be closing?
Yes.
And what time was the Walmart actually closing that night?
11 o'clock.
So did you gather up your kids and take your purchases or the items that you were looking to purchase and go towards the front?
Yes.
Did you see Cherish anywhere in the store?
No.
Did you see the defendant, Donald Smith, anywhere in the store?
No.
Did you look for him?
Yes.
What did you do to look for them?
I quickened my pace and I looked through every aisle at the register. There was no one there.
Could you find Cherish?
No.
How did that make you feel?
I started to panic.
Did you look at the Walmart to see if they were at the Walmart?
They weren't there.
What about the McDonald's at the front of the store? Could you
I
find
ran
them?
to the McDonald's.
Were they at the McDonald's?
No.
Did your panic start to become worse?
Yes.
Could you find your daughter and this defendant anywhere in that store?
No.
At some point, did you seek help from the Walmart employees and try to call the police?
Yes, I was yelling, call 911, my daughter's been taken, and no one would help me right away.
Finally, at some point in time, did one of the Walmart employees loan you a phone to use?
Yes.
And did you in fact call 911 that evening?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
May.
Ma'am, I'm now showing you the mark for identification purposes. States Exhibit E. This recording on this disc, prior to coming to court, had you had the opportunity to listen to the recording?
Yes.
And did you sign on the disc itself with your initials indicating that you had listened to this exact recording?
Yes.
Is the recording contained on this disc an exact copy minus some minor redactions for court purposes of your phone call to 911 on June 21st, 2013 when you realized Cherish was gone?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this point in time, the state is moving to evidence States Exhibit E. Is the next number Exhibit States 5? No legal objection, Your Honor.
Thank you. State's Exhibit E is entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 5.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, we would like to publish State's Exhibit 5 to the jury. We need some assistance with IT. I think I should earphones out. So.
Okay.
That's Rain Periwinkle, the mother of 8-year-old Cherish Periwinkle, describing when she realized her daughter had been abducted, and then she realized ultimately what would happen to her, which ended in her brutal rape and murder. I'm here with criminal defense attorney Yosha Gunasekera. This is a case of a mother who lost a daughter. Is it not coincidental that when you look at the jury makeup of 16 jurors, that's 4 alternates, 12 women, 4 men?
It's very interesting, and I believe at least 2 of those women have young children, and this is definitely going to strike a chord with them. Jurors are always instructed to base their decision, on the evidence and their discussions with other jurors, but we're all humans, and they're going to reflect also on their personal experiences as parents.
Yosha, I know our time together is coming to an end today. I just want to understand how this might have happened when you have a guy, Donald Smith, who has a long history. It dates back even to the 70s, where he has been in run-ins with the law, and he was a sexual predator. He was a sexual offender. How does someone who's been involved with the law, been arrested, been convicted, how is he out on the streets? How did this happen? How was he out there to be a predator and ultimately be where he is today?
That's a good question. He's been in and out for very similar types of crimes where he has preyed on young children. And so you see in Florida, they have increased minimums, state minimums on certain laws. So for example, raping a child, now the minimum used to be 25 years, now it's 50 years. So they are taking cases like this into consideration, into reformulating laws to keep truly dangerous people behind bars.
Yosha, again, I know our time together is coming to an end. What do you expect for the rest of the day? How would the defense, if the medical examiner comes on, if this trial even continues, how would the defense, I should say, cross-examine the medical examiner?
It's going to be tough. They're going to try to look at any errors the medical examiner might have made in the course of examining the body, any errors in preserving evidence. That's where they're going to try to attack to open up some windows for reasonable doubt. But it's going to be difficult. This, again, is extremely emotional testimony, so they're going to have to tread very lightly.
Yosha Gunasekera, thank you for coming on the program today. We can't wait to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. Again, we are covering the Donald Smith case, but I want to let our viewers know you can go to lawandcrime.com to follow another case that we're covering, the Bob Ward case out of Florida. That is that second-degree murder case where that man is charged with the shooting of his wife, Diane. Now, the question becomes, was that an accident or was that murder? Well, to go to lawandcrime.com. You know what? We actually have our feed back in the Donald Smith case, so let's go to it right now.